month, the day of the month, the date, you know, like it was the 7th of the month. Hello? Hello? Yeah. I'm in the middle of it. I'll have to call you back. So through it all, they could still see, you know, that I was a reasonable, decent guy, and that's how I've kept relationships. I took care of my first wife, who had Alzheimer's, for the longest time until finally one of the sons took her up to Oregon. But in the meantime, David took care of her, and when David couldn't anymore because he was in Eureka, then I took over, and I was driving back and forth to Claremont to see this Alzheimer's patient, and then I got her placed into a good home here in Santa Monica, and I visited her, I don't know, 2-3 times, and took care of, she had certain food needs, you know, so I got those for her, and I was with her, and we walked around, and so that was, you know, I was still there for her, and the thing is that she had 2 husbands after me, and wiped clean. Forget it. They didn't exist.
Did she pass away?
Yeah, she eventually passed away from Alzheimer's, I don't know, a few years ago. But I had not been in touch with her all that time because we were divorced. I had these other women in my life, and she was not a part of it anymore. But when she had to become a part because I was the only one who could do it, then I did it. And believe me, it was not easy. It was not easy at all. It was very hard because I had to do the commute from here to Claremont and back every time I saw her, and that's horrendous. Anyhow, finally realizing late that I was a good guy, and that's, you know, when I was, and I was mostly a good guy, that's what was attractive about me, and attractive to men and women and organizations and all the rest of it. And I guess it's still part of me that I'm still not as mean as I used to be. I tell them in the salon, I say, when I tell you that I was bad, that I was mean, you have no idea what that means. And I'm not going to tell you, because there are things I will never say to the camera or anybody. They're inside me, and that's where they're going to stay. And they are really bad stuff that I did. So, but generally, I get along with everybody in the building. They all wish me health and pray for me. It's primarily a black building, and they always ask me, would you mind if I pray for you? And I've told them all yes, so they don't ask that anymore. And one woman said, will you hold my hand and I'll pray for you? And I said, sure. You know, I don't believe in it, but you do, and I'll take any good stuff that comes my way. You know, if Paulette, you know, she has accepted Jesus in her heart. Well, that's great. And if she prays for me, which she does all the time, that's great. I don't put it down. I believe that, you know, that's a legitimate thing to do, and it does have some effect. I think it must have some effect, or I wouldn't be here 7 years after I was diagnosed. Yeah, and I used to go clubbing, lots and lots and lots of clubbing, and concerts, and just music. I love music, and I love street fairs, all of this kind of stuff. When the cancer came at the end there, and when I was crippled, and then I had to give up the car, then I had to stop that stuff. I wrote an email to Susie, and I told her that that's the worst thing, that I can't stand the inactivity, you know, not being out. I used to go out every night, and the people knew because they'd see me walking out at 10 o'clock, because that's when the headliners would go on at the clubs. They don't go on at 8 or 9, you know. They go on at 10:30. They're scheduled for 10. They go on at 10:30. So, and I was always going out at that time, and I was always coming back early in the morning, and that's just the way it was. And so they knew me as that person. And then when I stopped being that person, and I got to meet them, I'm friends with most of the people in here. Anybody who I've had any amount of contact with, I'm friends with. I've given art materials to the granddaughter and the daughter and the granddaughters of a neighbor down the hall, because they're little, the kids are little, and I have lots of art. I haven't done any art since I got cancer. It went out of me. I couldn't do it. And I did a lot of art. And so, yeah, they all say hello. They help me do errands. I had to pick up medicine last night, and I met one of my friends in the garage. She had just pulled in. She was in her a nightgown and a robe. She hopped in the car, took me to the pharmacy before it closed, because it was going to close in 3 minutes, you know. And she got me there, and she got me the meds, and that's the kind of people they are. And they cook for me. They bring me things, you know. So I finally got it into my head that as bad as I could be, I was not that so overwhelmingly that people couldn't see that other side. With Susie, I started to say, we celebrated the 7th of every month because that's the day of the month, the date of the month that we met. And we celebrated every 15th of the month because that's the day that we married. And so we celebrated this. I have cards still. We gave anniversary cards to each other for months and months and months. I must have been for more than a year. I remember one trick I played on her. I got her a balloon that says, I love you, you know, and it floats and all that. And so I gave it to her. It floated out the window. We lived on the top floor of an old house in Highland Park, and it floated out the window. Our bedroom was the whole top floor. And so I jumped out of the window. Now, it's not like I'm jumping down 3 stories. I jumped out of the window because there was an extension to the house, and so the roof, that roof extension was easily gotten to. So I jumped out the window in my shorts and went running after the balloon. And when I got the balloon, I brought it back to Susie, and I gave it to her. And she said, where did you get that? Where did it go? I said, oh, it went up in a tree across the street all the way up there, and I had to climb up the tree to get the balloon and bring it back to you. And she said, oh, that's so romantic. Of course, I made it up. I mean, the balloon was, you know, just outside, you know. But anyhow, I told her parents that I had swum the Hellespont, and they believed me. Because among other things, I like to make up stories, even the real ones are not enough for me sometimes, so I make up these stories. And yeah, so we did have a really romantic time for a long time. And then when it just got too bad, we separated, and then we eventually got a divorce. And I don't know. What can I say? There were times before I met Susie that I did firewalking. Oh, I could have worn that shirt. I'll wear it the next time. I have a staff shirt from Tony Robbins, who was the one who got the U.S. to accept firewalking, certainly California, and he took it out to the world, actually. And now he no longer does the morally pure firewalking. He does the commercially pure firewalking. Anyhow, but I became a staff volunteer. Real staff. I walked